Tonight, we've got Sarge. We've got the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. colliding back together. But we've also got Professor X. A young, handsome Professor X with hair. So much to talk about. Marvel TV Weekly starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome to Marvel TV Weekly. A little bit of a deja vu feeling here, but I'm Christian Bladt, joined by Xia Anderson.
I know, didn't we do this just a couple of minutes?
Just a few minutes ago. For those that don't know, we apologize. We're starting a little bit late for Marvel TV Weekly. We had to do a really fast Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show because there was so much on that show that happened that we didn't want to leave the fans who were sitting there in the chat waiting for that show to start. We didn't want to leave them hanging. Yeah. So it's a lot. It's a little double dip for myself and Xia tonight, but we hope everybody's here. And we hope everybody joined us from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. panel. We are going to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we just talked about it. So I think we should start off talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. again. I wanted it to sound like we were going to talk about Legion first, but really we're not. So going under the assumption, Xia, that people watching and listening to us right now didn't just hear us talk about this, give us an overall thought of this episode. It's season 6, episode 9, Collision Course Part 2, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
It was definitely a Collision Course Part 2.
Yeah, definitely Part 2.
No, I really liked it. I was previously saying that this show does a great job of answering a few of your questions and then giving you 20 more questions. So it kept me pretty much very interested through the entire episode. And I liked a lot of the character arcs, and I liked how some of them started and how some of them ended. And I mean, really, it's you get really attached to people.
Yeah, it's very easy for people to disparage this show, but you feel like if they actually watch it, they understand how invested you get on these characters. Mm-hmm. And look, in the course of, what are we up to, like 120 episodes now, just the amounts of twists and turns and changes for the characters and, you know, characters who aren't on the show anymore.
Characters who apparently lost arms.
Characters who've lost arms.
We were talking about that.
We have Clark Gregg playing a different character, or so we think, or who knows exactly what Sarge is something we'll talk about. But this was no exception. We'll talk a little bit about the very surprising ending of the episode, but just along the way, there was so much. And yeah, we learn a little bit about Sarge, especially when he's basically having a pissing contest with Azelle. You know, like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to kill you more than you want to kill me. And I thought that was pretty great, right?
That was pretty great. He was like, nobody's going to want to kill you more than I want to kill you. And
I'm going to kill you, bring you back to life so I can kill you again. And I thought that was just great, because these two people are, you know, I don't know how well they actually know each other, how long they've known each other, but they both want the other one to be dead. And I said this before in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show. The fact that she's like, you know, it's too bad I'll have to kill you. Sarge is like, nope, I can't wait to kill you. I love that. I love that about Sarge. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things to not like about Sarge, like the way that he took over the ship and, you know, handcuffed Mac. And look, this is not a great agency to be one of the nameless people who stands around the main characters, because you often get shot or killed. Yeah. This lady looks like she pulled through.
Yeah, she got shot in the arm.
But the guy downstairs that was guarding Jacko and Pax was not so lucky.
No.
So, you know, you don't want to be those people. But again, I really liked what we saw to Sarge, including Mac just relentlessly beating his face in.
It was a great fight.
And look, Sarge got a couple good ones in. I'm going to say, surprisingly, maybe a little far-fetched. But if he's 100 years old, he's probably learned a couple moves.
He's learned a couple of moves. Mac is just, look, I'm not saying that the little guy can't win, because they can. That's what jiu-jitsu's for, just saying.
Just saying.
But just Mac has so much more reach on Sarge.
Yeah.
He has so much more reach. Like, it's hard when, I mean, it's literally, like, he could go like this with his hand, and Sarge would be like, like swinging.
Come on.
For anyone who's listening, when you're a little kid and your little brother or sister is trying to hit you, and you just you hold your hand out and hold their head and they can't reach you. Yeah. I can picture
that Mac doing that to Sarge.
Yeah.
And thanks to Yo-Yo, he gets the keys so that he can, of course, take off his handcuffs. Mm-hmm. And he's really goading Sarge into losing his cool, because he knows he's gonna He's going to basically kick his ass. And one of the things that he says is, I feel like I'm going to get my ship back before the end of the day.
Because he knows.
Because he knows.
He knows.
And then after Sarge gets that whooping, he drops the line, which was so great earlier this season. It was the title of an episode. Mac just says, "Told ya." And how great was that?
Yeah, that was really nice. Like the shoes on the other foot, sucker. How do you feel now? No, it was really good. I really like also what we're getting, or what we got with sort of the group that Sarge is in.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it was Ivan Soto asked in the chat how you feel. Is a good question. How you feel about Sarge? Basically not caring about anyone, even his own crew.
Yeah.
Which he doesn't. Like, they're completely expendable to him. He even said it to Snow Bunny, Snowflake.
We will talk about Snowflake. Well, Snowflake,
so
yeah, exactly.
That she, he's like, it's not personal, and she is pissed. So it's funny how she kind of switched her allegiances there. She's like, "Oh, I'm done with you, Sarge. Hello, Deke." I love that. So, yeah, apologies also. My phone is
fine.
dying. I was trying to find a charger before I came in.
Jenna James in the chat points out that getting back to that conversation between Sarge and Azelle, she loved that conversation. When he said that his memory was erased and he didn't remember his family, that was very suggestive. Best of all, though, was when Azelle said, "You didn't have any memories."
I know.
And I'm like, well, tell us more about that.
Please.
But
that's one of the questions. They answered some stuff, and then they gave you that. And you're like,
right.
Okay, great.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So we have that. And I thought watching all that play out, up in the sky, that was great. But let's not forget that down in the truck, we have, as the episode starts, they're still basically on the titular collision course. And that part goes fine. And the tower collapses. And I guess everybody was hanging out around the tower. They're gone now. That's fine. But the bomb doesn't go off. Thanks to Daisy, and in the earlier show, Jenna James, again, another shout out, showing how much smarter she is than me, because she did correctly observe that what Daisy did is she built like a little quake wall or a little vibration wall around it to keep it from the impact. So she didn't actually defuse it. Now, one, what do you think about the fact that Daisy could do that? And two, what do you think about the fact that she needed to do it because Deke is incapable of defusing an atomic bomb?
Well, for a genius, he sure isn't holding up his genius end of the bargain, Mr. Deke, with your tech company. No, it's actually kind of in keeping with his character. It's annoyingly endearing, actually, where I'm like, okay, fine, you're going to kill everyone, but you're still adorable. What is this? With your hickeys all over your neck. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I felt like the hickeys got worse in this episode than they were last
week,
right?
He had 3.
Yeah, I guess they had, well, you know what? They had more reason to celebrate. And in fact, that was a great interaction between Daisy and May, where she's like, it's horrifying. You mean Sarge's plan? Like, no, the two of them.
What's happening literally right
over there.
Was so funny. But I love that Quick was able to do that. And I knew something had to have happened because, I mean, I could be wrong. They seem to kill characters off a lot. But I had a feeling they weren't going to kill off May, Quake, and Deke, and like everybody all at once. I feel like that would have been a lot.
Yeah,
but I just...
and I would have been disappointed, obviously, for those characters. But also, I'm not ready to say goodbye to Snow. I'm not ready for Snowflake. That's a snowflake I don't want to melt.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. That was a good one, actually.
That's all right.
Well, I didn't think of it. Yeah, no, I kind of wouldn't mind even her being around next season and just like wanting to murder everyone and S.H.I.E.L.D. being like, no, we can't. She's like, but it's beautiful butterflies. And they're like, no, Snow, no.
So, of course, the hard to watch train wreck relationship between Deke and Snow did lead to something that we've all kind of been waiting for. Just it did not happen in the way we expected, which was Deke telling Daisy that he has feelings for her, but instead he's just like, oh no, honey, I know you're into all this, but I've moved on.
Her of having feelings for him.
boy meets girl. No, girl meets boy. Boy becomes tech billionaire, meets different girl. Girl's feelings get hurt. And that was basically when she's like, we have to lock her up because she's a serial killer.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I think we really know what's going on. And it was great. It was a great job by Chloe Bennett just looking at him, just like, no, I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, no, it's because she's killed a lot of people. It's the murder.
Yeah, it's the murder.
It's the murder.
It's a series of being a serial killer, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, that was great.
So I thought that was actually very funny, but also true. She is a serial killer, and Deke was just her. No, come on, trying to that was basically pleading her case.
I also love, and we didn't talk about this in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show, but I also love when she's in her little prison cell, which was actually pretty nice, and he brings in a big TV, and she's like, what the hell is this? Like, the look on her face was kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
Because maybe wherever she's from, they don't have TVs.
They're probably going to binge, all 10 seasons of Friends or whatever.
Oh, I hope so. I love that.
They're going to be so excited.
Yes, that's going to be adorable, actually.
Yeah, I enjoyed all of that, but I'm glad that they dealt with the reality that just because Deke is making out with her, whatever he's doing with her, she still has to go to jail. She still has to get locked up.
What I do love, though, is how it flies under the radar for a while. Like, she is out amongst the part. They don't immediately lock her up like they do with Sarge, which is understandable that they would do that. But for some reason with her, they were just like, everybody kind of overlooked it until Daisy brought it up and was like, hey, by the way, someone should lock her up. And they're like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I guess we should.
You're absolutely right. We got to see Yo-Yo in action, the actual out in the field kind of action. And then the other kind of action with Mac, which is, I think, something we've all been waiting for. Let's talk about the first part of Yo-Yo's action. Just talk about how she kind of single-handedly saved the Zephyr and everybody on it from Sarge's tyrannical rule. Yeah,
she kind of did. I'm glad that they put that in there, because it would be really unbelievable if she didn't do anything or couldn't do anything, because she can move that fast. Like, a lot of, and I keep bringing this back to the Flash. I'm sorry. It's just such an easy comparison.
He is super fast.
He's super fast. And a lot of the thing with the Flash is, I love that show. I'm a little bit behind. But they have to kind of bring villains that will, he has to fight a lot of other speedsters, because who's going to be able to match him? Yeah. It's sort of the same thing with Yo. Like, you can't, she's too fast. You can't have, it has to be another speedster, otherwise she's just going to annihilate them, really.
Right, exactly. And that's why, you figure out ways to slow her down, you figure out ways for her to lose her arms, but she's still fast.
But she's still fast, yeah. And in this, they're not equipped to handle that, so no matter what, she should have been able to take them all down. But I enjoyed that they did it.
Now, you're not as invested in the Yo-Yo and Mac relationship as the rest of us,
I'm not.
But we were happy. I'm going to speak for everyone in, I forget, our friend Zach Wilson had a celebrity couple name for them, but I don't know if it's Moyo. I think that's a decent one, but I feel like he had a better name
Mayo?
than that. Well, that's just weird. But I was very excited to see it. What do you think about the way that scene played out, Xia?
I thought it was cute. I mean, I'm not invested because I haven't seen their relationship unfold. But from the sounds of it, he messed up and pushed her away.
Yeah.
Is what I gathered from all of that. She had an interesting rebound with the man who died. And now she's like, well, he's dead, so
I guess I'll go back to
I'll go back to Mac. I would really like to see what their bed session is like.
Whoa.
Hello. I'm just saying, because, dude.
Well, I'm pretty sure that it's fast.
I mean, imagine those quickies.
Yeah.
That's
true.
That reference.
But just think about how tough Mac is, so I think it'll be all right.
He can take it.
All right, so the episode kind of winds down in a way where it's like, look, we basically averted the Shrike. And thanks, of course, in no small part to Jacko, whom we gave a lot of credit to in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show. Little sad to see him make a sacrifice that it really feels like wasn't worth it.
No, and that line got me. I was like, oh, where he says, don't worry, don't worry, Snow, I'm going to be a butterfly.
I thought that was great.
That was like, oh my God.
That was really a nice touch. I thought that was fantastic.
It makes you actually feel something. Yeah. Like, I was legitimately sad for his death because he seemed like an actual good guy. And in this episode, they did a really good job of having sort of conflicting emotions where he's been hunting this monster, as they put it, Izel, for so long. And that's kind of been their number one objective. But he's really starting to not agree with a lot of Sarge's methods. And you see it in this episode where they keep was that what your family would have wanted? And I know he still has loyalties to Sarge, and I think understands why he's doing the things that he's doing. He's still thinking about it more, and he's just like, I don't like what's happening. And you see it, and I really enjoyed that sort of crossroads. And I think ultimately that's probably what led to him sacrificing himself or try. I mean, he did, but
I mean, he sacrificed himself. Unfortunately, he did not accomplish the goal of destroying Azelle. When we're watching the episode, I thought that she was still alive. And then when we see the preview for next week, we know she's still alive. But before we get to next week, there's that crazy ending at the end of the episode. God. And I was mentioning this in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show. I watch it on Hulu, and there was 1 minute left. I'm like, all right, this is going to be the credits. I should probably just click out of it and get back to my day. And I left it on, and it's a good thing I did, because May walks in and shoots Sarge. What did you think when you saw that?
What?
Yeah, right, exactly.
This is what? I love what was his line before that, too? It's just something real cocky.
It was like... It's like, all right, get this over. You don't like to talk. Get this over with.
Yeah.
So he figured that she was there to basically kick his ass.
But I don't think he was expecting that. He looked surprised
he looked
before
very
she
surprised.
then probably shot him. I'm guessing shot him in the head is what it looked like at the end there.
So until we saw the preview, what were you thinking must have happened before you saw the preview? And then we'll talk about the preview, and then we'll move on to Legion in a moment.
I honestly just assumed that Izelle had gotten away somehow. I really didn't think she was dead. I think it's too soon for that to happen.
Did you think that May shot Sarge? Like, you think that was May, or did you think something else was happening there?
I thought something else was happening there.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's just out of character for her. I don't think that, I think as much as she hated him, she wouldn't have done that.
Right. No, I didn't think that it was as it seemed, but at the same time, I'm like, man, if that's what that is, that's going to be crazy for the rest of the season.
No.
But then you see the preview, and then you realize not only is Azelle alive, now we know why Davis seems so sleepy. It seems like Azelle possessed him, or, that'll get explained next week. And it seems like she also got May to do something that May doesn't remember, because she's locked up. Like, you remember shooting Sarge? No, I do not. So what do you think we're going to see next week on S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I think that it's possible that Sarge isn't dead. I think it's going to be a lot of them. I think this, maybe not a filler episode. I think some stuff is going to happen, but I think maybe a little bit of a filler episode. I think it's going to be a little bit of them kind of regrouping and trying to find Izelle, and basically Fitz and Simmons, them asking a lot of questions and, figuring that whole thing out and going after her type deal.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 4 more epides this season.
That's a lot to still happen.
And Azelle's, this plan that we knew she had heading into this episode clearly didn't work out. I feel like she's got a plan B and maybe even a plan C and D. So...
Yes. I wonder how many of those little shrikes she's got.
Yeah, they're not all gone.
Right.
So we will have to see what happens with that. And you can, of course, check out the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show. You can see the one that we just did. And then I also did one by myself last week. You can find those at AfterBuzz TV on YouTube or wherever you get the podcast version of these shows. You can find it all out there. But the hosts of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after show, Tehran and Rachel, will be back next Sunday at 8 Pacific. So if you want to find it there, you'll have episode 10 to talk about. But what we're going to talk about now is Legion, chapter 22.
Hold on, I got
which I was, pages upon pages of notes like you always do.
My Legion notes.
Which was, I thought, very exciting to finally see. Something that, as seasons 1 and 2 went along, I didn't think we were ever going to see. Professor Xavier.
I know. I'm so excited. I'm like kissing. I'm like eating my mic.
You're about to eat the microphone.
I was about to eat the microphone.
Look, it looks delicious.
It does kind of look like candy.
Yeah. So a little shout out to the X-Men animated series,
nice.
Which is very nice. Thank you, Ryan. And yes, so we get to see a young Professor Xavier. So I think Harry Lloyd did a fine job. This is like even younger than Fassbender.
Yes.
Sorry, McAvoy. As
Jeez.
soon as I said it, I knew I was wrong. I corrected myself. Everybody should know.
It's okay.
In any case, so just give me overall thoughts on, this episode, but also on Harry Lloyd's portrayal of Charles Xavier.
This episode I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
I love the way it was pretty much mostly completely took place in the past, but they had just little bits of David and Switch sort of tied in from like the present time. Time works crazy in all of this. I still don't know if any of it's real. I'm not convinced that any of what's happening in this.
We'll dive into that in a moment.
We'll get into it. But it's very. It was very good. I really liked it. I liked seeing the backstory of his parents. They sort of switched it up a little bit from the comic iteration, which is fine. But in the comic iteration, he was treating Gabrielle, correct? Right?
Right.
And this one, he's just another patient.
Right,
which
but
is interesting.
The thing that they stuck with, and we talked about this on the Legion After Show, which, yes, is another show that I'm on, and yes, it'll be tomorrow night at 9 after another new 9 Pacific, after another new episode. But then you can talk
about episode 4.
Right, exactly. We'll be able to talk about the next part. But the fact that their story where they meet in a military hospital after World War II, we were all very surprised because that timeline does not add up. David is not almost 60 years old. So even if they were together, even if you give them even if you give them 10 years of being together before they have David, which it did not seem that it was that long, he's still too old. So that poses a number of questions when they basically, when Gabrielle gave David away to the parents who raised him, his adoptive parents, did he somehow get put into the future? Or is this lending itself to that idea that none of this is really happening and it's all crazy, mind-bending, weird theatrics, and that's why the time doesn't add up?
I would not be surprised if this was all taking place in David's head.
I said this Monday on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. After Show.
Did you really?
Nope, sorry, on the Legion After Show. I do too many shows.
You do too many shows.
Yeah.
They're all Marvel.
Yeah, that's true. But if the series ends and David is sitting in the hospital from season 1 and he has imagined the whole thing, I'm going to do what I can to flip this desk over and storm out of here, and I don't want to talk about it. I will never want to talk about the show again. It'll be the way, you know, I don't know if you watched Lost or not, but when people watched Lost, everybody loved Lost. And except for 5% of the people, after the finale, people hated Lost. They didn't want to talk about it anymore. They couldn't believe they'd wasted so much time on the show.
I remember. I watched the first season and that was it because
It was
after
a good time
that,
to stop.
I agree. I mean, I just obviously didn't watch past that, but I was like, they're not going to go anywhere with this, and I know that.
Yeah, they had no idea where they were going. They lied about where they were going, but anyway, that's a different show.
It's good.
It's not good.
It's not
No, it's awful.
Good.
No.
Like,
that finale was terrible.
Oh, this is a great fight, guys.
It is the most disappointing finale. It's not the worst finale, but it's the most disappointing because the show had been so good up until that point. But if they do this on Legion, where it's just all in his head, which is basically Saint Elsewhere, where that's an older show. It's a show in a hospital, but the series finale of that show was an autistic boy had a snow globe of the hospital and he imagined the whole thing, and that is actually the worst ending for a show. The show wasn't that good. It wasn't my kind of show. But it's such a terrible idea. And this is basically that. So if they Saint Elsewhere this show, I'm going to Saint Elsewhere this desk. And
I will help
by the way,
you.
there is no way I can flip over this desk.
I'll help you. We'll do it. We'll
and I'm
figure it out.
I'm not going to throw my laptop. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to spill a drink. And that's not going to be nice because somebody's going to have to clean it.
Throw a chair at home. Like if it happens at home, I'll probably pick something up and throw it.
I'll be watching it right out there because I watch it out there and then we do the show afterwards.
Well, then I will text you a video of me throwing something and Nick can video it.
The point
Hold on real quick,
yes.
guys. I really do think we should record you guys watching the last 10 minutes of the show just
in case.
We
won't be watching it together, but we could. Well,
we could just record it and then splice it together. Maybe that would be fun.
That would be fun.
Great idea.
I think that is a great idea.
That is a really good idea. Okay, so let's do that.
But this episode it lends itself a little bit to that. But what I liked about this show is that it's not afraid to do things like this episode, which it also did in the season premiere, which is we didn't even hear David for about half of this episode, and then we start to hear him a little bit, but we don't even see him until it's almost over.
I just thought it was a flashback episode, and they did it very well.
This was really a Charles Xavier episode, which I thought was great. And look, it's a little bit of a treat to get Professor X, you know? I mean, on a show where we thought we were never going to... I thought the only X we were ever going to see was in the logo for the show, you know? And
I always like how they do Legion, though. When the
how they write it out with, like, blocks,
this was the
and
box
they always
this
do
time.
stuff
I thought
like
that was
great.
great.
So... we finally get to see him, and we get to see him meet David's mother, and it's Gabrielle Haller, and it is the story that she was from one of the concentration camps. She was catatonic. Charles goes in there, tries to help her out. All of a sudden, she's awake. You know, all this. So I thought watching their love story was very sweet.
It was very sweet. Made me really want cherry pie.
Yes, absolutely.
Pie looked awesome.
Right. And if this were the old days, I would have been able to queue up Ryan with a warrant cherry pie, but instead you'll just have to...
Cherry
there
pie.
you go. Thank you. That's fine.
Anytime. Thank you.
Yeah, cool drink of water. What a sweet surprise.
Yes.
But The thing about all of it was that it was a little bit mind-bendy, as this show often is,
Yeah,
because
expect that,
she's
though.
obviously got her problems, and Charles was having his problems just sort of figuring out who he is and what he can do. It's all.
Right.
It seems like his abilities are still very new to him at this point.
But he still has a pretty decent grasp on them, just how he got them out of the hospital.
Yes, he's a by that point. But I really wanted to get your thoughts on. There's a sort of a flashback thing where he ends up in a tunnel, and there's a German soldier, and he uses his ability to tell him to kill himself.
He does.
And I was like, wow, that's a very Kilgrave approach to using your mental powers. What did you think about that?
I think that it was an act of desperation
Yeah.
for him. I mean, obviously, he's literally in the middle of war right now.
Yeah.
And that was I think an interesting way for him to kind of become afraid of his powers.
Yeah.
Which actually pays a lot of attention, makes a lot of attention with Professor X just as a character in general. He's always very cautious with his powers and very aware that he can do things, I think, that are unsavory and also kind of impolite, how he is with... He even mentions that going into Gabrielle's mind, that he knows that he can do it, but he doesn't like to pry.
Yeah.
He's like, it's just, I don't want to go, I want to let people have their privacy, even though he still goes into their mind. But he did.
He just goes there to look around. You know?
Yeah.
It's like going to a museum. You don't touch the paintings, but you like to look at them and see what's going on.
Really hard not to if you could read minds. Could you imagine?
Oh, I just read your mind. That was very dirty and very inappropriate, but not
that's
but
true.
not surprising.
Yeah.
In any case, the interesting thing is that you feel like when Charles is just a little bit older, if he's in that same situation, he's able to just tell someone stop,
Yes.
not go kill yourself.
Right. I think
So,
that was sort of just...
That's what I liked, is we're seeing such a young and, as you said, desperate Charles Xavier that he doesn't quite know how to navigate those kind of situations. And honestly, even though he's intending to go into Gabrielle's mind and try and help her, I'm sure that potentially he could have done a lot more harm than good. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the key... Oh, and by the way, Jenna James getting a lot of shout-outs tonight. She says,
great.
David is a lot older than he appears. Because of his powers, he's able to slow his aging or just appear a younger age. This is why he looks like an old man when he appears next to his crib, right before his father banishes him back to the present time, which is a cool thing that happens at the end of
snap!
So it is
Jenna.
it's a great observation, and I would like to see that. If that comes to fruition, I'll have to remember to give Jenna all the credit on that.
Yes, that is fantastic.
But let's talk about what leads up to that moment when Professor X sends David back to the future. So, Back to the Future. I can't believe I even said it. But anyway, the house is haunted as far as Gabrielle can tell.
Yeah, haunted.
And it's legitimately got the presence of the Shadow King. It's got the presence of Farouk in there. But the worst part about this, she's also haunted and being driven crazy by David trying to warn her.
Yep.
So I wanted to know what you thought about sort of the fact that David is doing, I think, more harm than Farouk was.
I also think it's possible that he, in a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, is what caused that to happen.
Yeah.
Because
I think he drove his mother crazy.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it was a combination between that. It's interesting because she did mention that she feels something good and warm watching over her at night when she sleeps. Which was that David?
Or was that Farouk? Which is
Farouk?
what we're supposed to ask throughout the whole season.
Right.
Who's the bad guy? Who's the really bad guy? And who's the more good than bad guy? Is it Farouk? Is it David? I am always going to say that it's David and stay on David's side. I can't see him all Farouk. Maybe it's because I know the character a little bit more from the comics. I'm just like, he is not good in any way.
Awful.
There are no redeeming qualities.
Horrible.
And Professor Xavier even says it. He's excited to go off to Morocco to meet Amal
Says
Farouk.
he's a monster.
And he leaves when he's talking to Gabrielle on the phone. He's just like, he's not like me. Yeah, he's a monster. And it all sort of references when we first really see the embodiment of Farouk in the comic book version, which I believe is Uncanny X-Men 118. And there's a great fight between Professor X and the Shadow King on the astral plane, and a nice little shout out. There is a young girl who tries to pick Professor Xavier's wallet out of his pocket, who is of course Aurora Monroe, who grows up to become Storm. but she's a little girl in that story. So it's a very cool
I
little
only
moment.
vaguely remember that.
Yeah, well, just add it to the reading list.
Oh,
but
yes.
it's so anyway, that's sort of basically. So as I'm watching this episode, I'm like, I know where he is. I know what's going on. I know who tried to steal his wallet. So it's like it was like very much a comic tie-in that they probably weren't working that hard to do. But I get excited for those kind of things.
Oh, that's great.
So we see that Charles gets home and does indeed send David back to what is his present, but it was Professor Xavier's future. And he's tried so hard to warn her, and I think does more harm than good. Mm-hmm. And it really took a lot out of Switch, though. And I wanted to know what you thought about the way that David reacted to the fact that Switch was just needed to sleep, and it really took so much out of her.
That was a bit of a bummer. It's hard because I understand his desperation. That's it was happening right now, but the thing is, it already happened. It doesn't matter when you try this again, you're going to go back to the same point.
Yeah.
And it was kind of disheartening. Where I was like, dude, come on, this poor girl. Which it's interesting. She has to take or does she just lose a tooth every time she goes back?
Well, I think that. And we talked about this on the Legion After show on Monday. In the previous episode, the tooth is a little bit, it hurts a little bit. It's a little bit like she's wiggling it. Now, this time, she's done enough where she actually takes the tooth out. So it's taken that much out of her. So my theory is, well, she can like go back in time 31 more times, and then she's going to die and be out of teeth.
And be out of teeth. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for the love of God, man, let her rest.
Yeah. It's like if you're
Sleep.
going to go back in time, you're going to go back to the moment you left from. You could go like a year from now. Calm down, buddy.
Yeah, it doesn't matter when you try this again. But he's just freaking out because to him it's all happening right this second, even though it's David, it's already happened. So that was like, dude, come on. Back to Harry Lloyd's performance, though. I just really wanted to quickly say I really thought he did a good job. And I know that he's British, so it's not the accent. It's just the cadence and the way he says things.
Yeah.
To me, felt very Professor X, and I was like, oh, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, and there was, of course, a nice nod to the fact, David even says, like, it must run in the family. I took a note when I was watching this that Noah Hawley, the creator, the adapter of this story for television, the guy who did the TV version of Legion, clearly, like, romanticizes mental hospitals because David and Sid meet in a mental hospital, and we have Professor X and Gabrielle meeting in the mental hospital.
Yes, he does. And also another note that I took in that mental hospital was, were they ever that nice?
No.
I feel like that's like, dude, especially back then. They're not nice now, and they were worse back then.
One of the things that we talked about Monday on the Legion After show that I need to ask you, though, we have the representation more from season 1, but we saw a little bit in season 2 of sort of the angry boy, the doll. Oh. And we see that super creepy doll that Gabrielle gives to baby David. And I'm sorry, it looks like Hitler.
Yes, it does.
Why are you giving your baby a Hitler doll?
I know. You came from an internment camp.
Right?
Why do you have a Hitler doll?
I don't know. I just it's a nice callback visually for the show, but I'm like, well, this is horrifying.
Oh yeah, no, that's what Nick was saying. Like, why do you have that? And why is your hand in the box with it? Like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, exactly. Like, why would you have it? So. I don't know. I think that we really got a lot out of this, though, and there's just a lot of cool visuals all the way throughout, and the first time we see kind of Farouk kind of showing up, it was like almost like the opening of a TV show. It was sort of like he had his own theme music. I thought it was all very cool.
And it's so interesting how we kind of get the vision that we see of the Shadow King in David's mind, sort of out of when he's always out of the corner of his eye or lurking, is very different from the Amal Farouk that I guess is a human version of him.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's those two different versions. You don't really see the human version that we have in the comics. That's not.
No, the human version you see a little bit in the comic that I mentioned, which again I think is Uncanny X-Men 118.
Okay.
I try to be pretty good about memorizing that stuff or just remembering it from 30 years ago, but it's right around there. There's a flashback story. So this episode was essentially Professor X origin story, even more so than little bits of what we saw in X-Men First Class, where there's a flashback to a younger Charles running into Raven in the kitchen or the pantry, whatever. So that, and the fact that we still don't have Sarge's origin for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., led me to a fun topic for the remainder of this show, which is best Marvel origins. And there are going to be a few choices between the two of us.
We've got a few.
I think we have the same number one, but I want to let you go first. We're going to do 3 each. So if you're watching live in the chat, let us know your favorite Marvel origin story, and we'll try and shout it out before the episode's over. If you're watching the archive version, you can leave those comments on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to it, or go ahead and tweet it at us, and we will try and get to those next week. So for you, what is your number 3 Marvel origin?
My number 3 is Captain America.
Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers.
Skinny kid.
I know.
Not fit for the military. Becomes a super soldier and
saves the world. He
Not
brings
only-
back half the population, you guys.
But not only that, he's America's ass.
yeah, and you know what? It's a great one.
I'm going to defer to you on that. But you know what? Honestly, yeah. It's
Yeah, come on.
It's a great ass. One of
He
my,
gets to look at that suit and he gets to look at it.
For me, number 3 on my list, for those watching on YouTube, you can see him on my shirt. It is Matt Murdock, Daredevil. Just the fact,
good one.
it's such a simple, look, a lot of these origins from the 60s are fairly simple. The fact that it's an accident, it's a truck accident, he gets hit with a chemical that blinds him, but it also heightens all of his senses. I thought it was just sort of a cool, I don't know, it's a very like, I don't know, like a Faustian bargain or something to kind of get it a little bit exaggerated importance, but just this idea of you lose this one thing, but then you get so much more back.
Right.
I think it's just sort of a very poetic sort of.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
if you could do that's a good question. If you lost would you lose your sight to be able to get all the other senses that Daredevil has?
I really like to see.
I know, right?
And he can sort of see because he senses the vibrations and things
Right,
like
but
that.
you can't like watch TV.
No, yeah.
I
I
like
mean, you
watching
wouldn't be able to
TV.
watch us right now. You wouldn't be able to watch Legion or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then talk about it on the show. You'd have to listen to it.
Exactly.
Which I'm sure there are people that didn't get a choice that aren't able to see, so they choose to listen to shows like that. But I'm being
absolutely
given the
fine.
choice. And I
Right, I'm
want to be
asking.
able to see. Because if I can see and not hear, I'll be able to read the closed captions. So I
point.
feel like I don't want to be Daredevil, if that's what you're
That's
asking.
basically what I was
Yeah.
asking. Yeah. So
I also,
no, the answer to
I'm
that
also
is
not
no.
smart enough to go to law school, so I really can't be Matt Murdock.
That's
Who
also true.
is your number 2?
My number 2 is actually Venom.
Right now, this is there's a lot of finer points in the Venom origin, because we first meet the black suit, the symbiote that becomes Venom. I guess chronologically, it's Secret Wars number 8, but we first see it in Amazing Spider-Man 252, and Peter realizes, I got to get rid of this thing in 258. Thank you, Mr. Fantastic, for figuring out that basically sonic waves scare it off of him, and they're able to get rid of it. But you're talking about when it becomes Venom?
When it becomes Venom.
Right.
And when he basically, I guess, when he finds Eddie Brock, which
Yeah.
is kind of the more well-known sort of origin
Right,
story.
that's the part where it becomes Venom. Before that, it is just the black
just,
costume.
right.
It is a symbiote. It's still the same. It's the same life form, but it hasn't merged with another human at that point. To become Venom.
Venom. Right.
Right.
So I do love that.
I do love that
Venom.
too. And Venom, when Carnage came along, I was like, no, we already have Venom. I'm sorry. There's not enough room in my heart for you. It's a very different character, but
I am actually okay with Carnage. I love Carnage too.
well, if we get Carnage in Venom 2, and it is Woody Harrelson, who we saw there, I think that'll be great. So for me, number 2 origin is Wolverine. Now, you'd think he's a mutant. That's not a great origin story. However, I'm talking about when he goes from Logan into Weapon X and becomes Wolverine.
Ah, okay.
So being in the tank and having adamantium infused into his bones.
didn't have adamantium
and
before.
The claws that it turns out he already had, so he had the bone claws, and the fact that his healing factor is the only reason that the adamantium bonded to his skeleton didn't kill him, or the process didn't kill him. I think that that's just such an inventive thing, and it's been told a few different times. There was, I think, a 10-part Marvel Comics Presents story that seems to be the definitive version. As bad as X-Men Origins Wolverine is, they did a decent job in capturing the visuals of that story from the comics of like how he goes into the tank and he actually gets the adamantium and all of that. So I think it's very cool. The fact that he has the healing factor and he ages slow, sort of something that Jenna mentioned about David, and they did retcon this a little bit. They decided that he was born in the 1850s and he's just a lot older. I think it's kind of cool, actually, that so I think he fought in the Civil War and World War I and World War II. It's well documented that he fought with, he fought with Natasha Romanoff, he fought with Captain America, and I think I'm forgetting other people, but there were a lot of people that he was able to team up with during World War II.
Let's watch that movie. Bring me that, please.
I might be, no, I'm not wrong. There was an episode of the animated series that was a flashback to Wolverine and Cap in World War II.
Oh my God, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, well, it's late in the series, so maybe maybe you'd found a hobby by then, or maybe you were like outside having fun. And
it's possible. I did do that a lot.
Most likely you were partying. But anyway, so whatever it was that kept you busy, maybe you didn't see it. Anyway, let's move on to our number one origin. I guess we agree on this, right?
We do, yeah.
It's hard to top being bitten by a radioactive spider.
I know.
How could you not? How could you have anything? That's right, yes. With great power comes great responsibility.
And that's one that I would take, by the way.
Oh, the proportionate,
to get those,
the proportionate strength of a spider.
He doesn't give much up.
No, I mean, and honestly, it makes his life better. There was a question earlier in the chat. The thumbnail for this episode is a Steve Ditko drawing from Amazing Fantasy 15 of Peter being bitten by the radioactive spider. And I think it was Ivan Soto said, I didn't know Peter wore glasses. Peter wore glasses for like the first 5 pages he was a character.
Well, yeah.
And then once he's bitten by a spider, he doesn't need glasses anymore because his eyesight's better.
Well, it's just, they actually show that in the first Spider-Man that we got. He was confused.
The first Sam Raimi.
Yeah, he put the glasses on.
Yeah,
he took them off and he's like, whoa, what the hell? And they showed that.
So the being bitten by a radioactive spider is, of course, a very 60s way to give somebody superpowers.
Right.
You've got cosmic rays for the Fantastic Four. You've got gamma rays for Bruce Banner. But radioactive spider. But it's bigger than just that incident. It is the sound drop we heard of "With great power comes great responsibility."
Great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly, Tobey Maguire.
Thank you, Toby. Yeah, I was
very
gonna say
clearly, Toby. That is not Andrew Garfield.
No,
and that is not Tom Holland.
No,
and that is not any of the various voices from the animated series.
Always have a soft spot in my heart for Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
He was our first, his first Spidey, and as I've said. I don't think I said it on this show. I have to rewatch it, but I still think that my favorite Spider-Man movie is Spider-Man 2, the one with Doc Ock. I still think that's my favorite one, and that's a Tobey.
That's a great one.
So it's hard to say. Look, you can pick a favorite Spider-Man, but for me, it's hard to say that I don't like any of them. I think that Andrew Garfield was probably my favorite Peter because of his relationship with Gwen Stacy. I love those scenes. But back to the origin story. The fact that he gets these powers and he decides, like, great, I'm going to go into business. And it's such a tragic, it's like a Shakespearean tragedy that Stanley probably wrote in the course of like under an hour. Mm-hmm. This idea that he could have stopped this guy, but he's just like, why do I have to bother doing anything with this? And then that guy breaks into the house and shoots Uncle Ben. And the fact that he could have done it is the reminder that with great power comes great responsibility. I try to say it fast. I can say it faster than Toby.
5 times fast.
Yes, but I don't know. To me, it's just such a it's almost like a Twilight Zone sort of a thing. It's such a stark reality. Tony Stark, I didn't mean it. But yes. It's such a harsh lesson that he had to learn, and it really shapes as much fun as Spider-Man is, as silly as he tries to be, his career as a superhero starts out of tragedy. Mm-hmm. What do you think sort of about that aspect of Spider-Man's story, Xia?
Well, without that, we wouldn't have Spider-Man, because I wholeheartedly believe that he would have just gone on to be a wrestler.
He would have kept wrestling.
He's been a famous wrestler and just had fun all the time. I mean, something else maybe could have come along where he felt bad, but you're right, that really, it shapes who he is, and I don't think that we would have had a Spider-Man without that moment. So as sad as it is to see Uncle Ben die, sorry, Uncle Ben, you kind of gotta.
Yeah, unfortunately. We've got some great origins in the chat. We're almost out of time, but I want to give a shout out. Both Incan TV and Ghost 8386 give a shout out to the Silver Surfer. Incan TV also mentions the Fantastic Four. Ghost 8386 also mentions 2 Ghost Riders, Danny Ketch and Johnny Blaze. Johnny Blaze is the one I'm familiar with.
Same.
Let's see. And Ivan Soto, best origin story, Skye becoming Quake in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Tony Stark becoming Iron Man, Tandy and Tyrone becoming Cloak and Dagger and Cloak and Dagger. On the TV series, it was a really interesting sort of turn of events that happens there, where they both end up on the beach as kids, as opposed to, and they made fun of it on the show, with basically like synthetic heroin, essentially. Is what did
I prefer
it.
the synthetic heroin storyline.
Well, I knew you would. And Jenna James likes Galactus, and she also agrees that Spidey's the best one, though. Rogue discovering her powers in an unfortunate way. She does. She's making out with a boy named Cody Robbins, and then her mind. Yeah. So
she almost kills him.
Yeah. So that's less about the fact that she was born with her powers, but like when they manifest themselves.
Right.
And you definitely run into problems like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Deadpool, yeah. And Jenna James just says all the runaways. That's a lot. But Deadpool is great.
Story, yes.
Anyway, keep these coming. I would like to continue this conversation in the weeks ahead. Now, next week, I believe we'll be on at this time. But if we're able to do the show a little earlier to accommodate somebody's schedule, because somebody at this desk, not me, is going to be at Comic-Con.
I'm going to be at Comic-Con.
Very excited.
I'm so excited.
And if you're not able to join us on this show, I'm probably going to make you record a video and send it to us.
Okay.
I'm going to, at least I can't make you do that, but I will ask you to do that because there's going to be a lot to talk about.
I am going to work my hardest to get my butt into Hall H. So.
And people are going to want to know what's going on at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And a great way to find out is to follow you on Twitter, which I know you don't use a lot, but this would be a time to use Twitter.
This is going to be a time for me to use Twitter. I'm going to do some Twitter. I'm going to do some Instagramming live. I'm going to do some videos. I'm going to do as much as I possibly can there. So definitely Twitter and Instagram at Xia_land. That's XIA_land. I'm going to try to get as many pictures and videos of awesome cosplays as I can too. So many Spider-Mans. It's going to be really fun. I'm so excited.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Christian DMZ. Ghost 8386 also says Luke Cage and Iron Fist both have cool origin stories.
Yes,
Just wanted to get those in there.
Yeah.
And as I said, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, the Legion After Show here after Buzz TV. We will be back on this show next Sunday. Until then, Excelsior.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.